Hey, it's Heidi Rain. Welcome back for another episode of Addiction and Codependency Breakthrough. I am so glad you're here. We're going to talk about one of the most important topics that comes up a lot in different questions. The questions people ask sound like, am I justified in feeling the way that I feel? Is it okay for me to be angry? What do I do with my resentment, or what when they say I should just get over it, why can't I? Am I allowed to be mad even though they're getting better? And of course, I'm talking about specifically when you're in a relationship with an addict or an alcoholic, that rage and resentment that you feel. And we're going to really examine this from a couple different angles today because I'm going to tell you repressed rage and repressed resentment is the quickest road to hell, personal hell, that you can drive down. Okay. I mean, nothing will get you to feeling empty, depleted, depressed, sad, just horrible all around than repressing your rage and your resentment. But we do it. And I'm going to tell you why that is and how it comes out when we're repressing it and what to do about it so that you can stop repressing that rage and what to do with that resentment so that you expel the demon and let it go so that you can be happy, healthy, and whole. Amen. All right. That's the goal today. So buckle up. It's going to be a very interesting ride, and I'm excited to take you on it. Now, if you're new here, I do want to take a minute and say, welcome home. I'm so glad that you found me. My whole life's mission is to help you, a person impacted by another person's shit show. You have anointed yourself show supervisor. You're the fixer, you're the helper, you're the one that's kind of holding it all together. But what you're doing isn't working. You're tired, you're exhausted, you're on the fence about your relationship, you're wondering, should you stay, should you go? You don't know if you're coming or going, and you have your own self to worry about, your own happiness to worry about, your own healing to worry about. And I have you covered every step of the way. I have multiple programs, and actually two, not multiple, not too many, just two courses that you can take that will help you get the clarity and certainty and confidence and strength you need to make the changes you want to make and see in your relationship. So at any time, you can always go over to HeidiRain.com and take a look around over there. Now, let's dive into this topic today. What are the two reasons that I found? I'm asking you, what did I find are the top two reasons? Well, you have no way of knowing this. So let me ask it a different way or tell you. I'm going to share with you the top two things I've found over the course of the decade that I've been doing this work, specifically with families dealing with addiction. The top two reasons that people don't let out their rage or speak of their resentment or how this addiction has impacted them. And these are the two reasons. Are you ready? Number one is because we have this false belief that if we let our feelings be known, our rage or our resentment, that we're going to make somebody use more or we're going to make somebody relapse. For example, many times this shows up like somebody gets out of treatment and they've gone through some kind of recovery process, and you're still left angry. You're still left upset. You're still left with all the, I call that the shrapnel from being a victim in their internal war. And you're left with this psychological, emotional shrapnel, and they're getting out of treatment. Like, what? You just need to move on. You just need to get over it. And you don't want to bring up all those past things that have happened and all the ways that they hurt you because you're afraid that you're going to trigger something in them or you're going to make them relapse. And that is a dance that you do that really keeps you from sharing your authentic truth, speaking your truth about this whole experience, and really letting those feelings out and healing ultimately prevents you from doing that. So that's one of the reasons I found. And the second reason I found is because we think that when we express our rage or our upsetness or our resentment, that they're going to take their love away from us. So ultimately, both of these things are putting all of the pressure on ourselves. Either I control the universe and I'm so powerful that you're my puppet. And if I say or do the wrong thing, you're going to go get high or you're going to relapse. Or we think that everything we do makes somebody love us or not love us based upon our behavior. And honestly, either to one of these things that you're thinking isn't probably a new idea for you or a new concept. Meaning, either the addict or alcoholic has gaslit you into believing that you have influence over how much they use on a particular day or if they relapse or not, which you don't have any influence over that. or you've been told that growing up, you are responsible for the bad behavior of other people, and that's an old program that you're running. Also, this taking their love away or this punishing you for being upset. Now, I'm going to give you an example from my own life of how this behavior can be laid down. And I want you to start thinking about your own life. I know you come to these videos and you have tremendous change. So well, I'm here to double down on that. I'm here to really give you some. It's not like there's so much advice out there that just wants to sugarcoat things and just wants to put a band-aid on a flesh wound or wants to tell you there's nothing you can do and just but the truth is that the work that I do is extremely deep. It's life-changing, it's truly transformational, but it requires a price. The investment that you have to make is in yourself. And the investment in yourself into taking the time and sitting with these questions and journaling about them and asking yourself these deeper things so that you can have a deeper level of transformation and change in your life. And I think that's worth it. I think that's worth that price to pay. Your time, your energy is worth that. You are worth your own time and energy and investment. Okay. So let's take out a journal and let's get a pen and paper and let's ask ourselves this question: how can I relate to where this pattern might have been laid when I'm listening to Heidi's story? What's my story? How did I come to believe that I'm not allowed to show my anger? I'm not allowed to show my disapproval or my resentment. For me, when I was growing up, I was hurt a lot, and psychologically, physically, emotionally, I suffered a lot of abuse as a kid. And what would happen is the abuser would mm, would then look to me to see my reaction of the abuse. It's a lot typical of a lot of narcissistic abuse, right? Where they would be abusive, they would say the hurtful thing, they would do the terrible thing, and then I would have a reaction as a kid to that happening, and then I would be shamed and judged for my reaction. It would look like something like this. They hurt me, I have a reaction. I feel anger towards that person. You're angry. See, you're the one that made me do this. Like, you're not allowed. You think you're angry with me. I'm angry with you. And it starts this whole contest of who's allowed to be upset, who's allowed to have feelings, who's allowed to have a reaction. And for me, my whole childhood growing up was like, I'm not allowed to have a reaction to the pain that you're inflicting upon me. And if I have a reaction, like if you're with a narcissist, for example, this is probably really familiar to you, where you would show, hey, you hurt me. And then that makes them go into another land. They're like, oh, no, 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 no. I didn't hurt you. You hurt me. I never would have done that because I'm not that type of person. They can't handle your anger at their hurting you. And it's so ironic when you think about it. They're mad at you for being angry about the pain they inflicted upon you. But that's the madness. That's the madness of this codependency soup that we grow up in. So we learn early on, I can't be mad or have a reaction to the pain you're causing me. Just sit with that for a minute. Just think about that for a minute. You're not allowed to be angry and upset or feel rage or resentment to the person who's hurting you because they're gonna be hurt that you feel that way. I mean, that is a mind effer, right? I mean, that is like so if we just sit with that, we say, "Well, that's not right. That doesn't sound right." But programming isn't logical, it's habitual. So, nothing we do really sometimes when we take the logic out of a lot of things when we run on autopilot, and if you were like me, trained up in an environment where you weren't allowed to show emotion for when people were hurting you, you had to pretend like you're okay, and that lays what I call the pretender pattern, a pretending codependency pattern. If you're interested, by the way, in learning about the 8 different patterns of codependence that get laid early in life, or when you're in a relationship with an addict or an alcoholic, you can go over to HeidiRain.com and take a test that I made for you called Codependent Attachment Personality Patterns. And it's a test. It takes about 15 minutes. It's a deep test. It's not like which Disney princess am I? Okay. Oh, which flavor of granola do I like? It's a deep test to give you insight into yourself. So it takes some time to take it, but I want to encourage you to do that. Take the first step. So when you grow up and you say, okay, I'm not allowed to have emotion, or you didn't grow up in an environment like that. Maybe you had beautiful parents and a wonderful experience. But if you've been exposed to the addict or alcoholic long enough, and let's say you married young and you've been with them for a long time in your life, they've also trained you into this behavior because they've said things like this to you when you've been mad at them for drinking or are spending all the money. They then do that narcissistic thing, which is like, well, when you're mad at me about that, you make me want to go drink more, or can't you let that go? Or that was in the past, and all this gaslighting, training you into habitual submission and surrender and pretending that you're not that you're okay when you're not okay. And how does that manifest? So that's why we do it. Those are the 2 reasons we do, either because, it's all training at the end of the day. You've been trained into this over time, and I'm about to reprogram you because honestly, this isn't the way life works. We're meant to have pain sensors in our pain sensors outnumber our pleasure sensors in our body, like what, 10 to 1? I mean, we have more pain sensors in our body, but when you're conditioned and trained to nullify your pain sensors and you pretend and you suck it up and you put your big girl pants on, then you get into this situation of a codependent dynamic. And your codependency erupts in this relationship where I can't be real, I can't be honest, I have to walk on the eggshells. So guess what? Now I take on a pattern of behaving. I either take one of the patterns I take on is controlling. I feel like if I can just control every move you make, you won't hurt me. And I don't have to pretend to be okay because I'm going to avoid you hurting me by locking up your medication, doling out how much you're using, keeping my eyes on you, tracking your phone, all of the methods that you do. I'm going to follow you. I'm going to look at your phone records. I'm going to look at the bank. All the things that you do to see what's really going on is a method to protect yourself from pain so that you don't have to feel the pain and you can pretend to be okay. I'm going to be pain avoidant. I'm going to control you. That's one of the ways that controlling pattern emerges in our life. Another thing we do is another pattern that we have is the pretending pattern, which I already talked about, where we suck it up, we pretend not to be hurt. Well, just I actually did that in my life. There became one time where the pretending pattern was absolutely ingrained in me where I was getting beat with a belt and I was getting beat. And I just remember thinking in that moment, it's probably 10 or 11 years old. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to let you see me cry because when you see me in pain, you win and I'm not gonna let you win, and that's how I looked at it. I looked at it as a game of, like, me not showing emotion means I'm winning over you. I mean, that's a really sick and toxic way, to look at life, right? I get to be vulnerable, I get to show I'm in pain, I get to speak my truth, but my survival skill as a kid was don't show it's like Cobra Kai up in here, no mercy, man, just pretend you're fine, and I wasn't. But that pattern stuck with me, because when I cried, it seemed worse no matter what I did. But honestly, that was the way I protected myself was to convince myself that I wasn't in pain. I was so good at that, and maybe you are too, that when your pain tolerance increases, and also I call that your bullshit thermometer. Your bullshit thermometer increases where you can take more bullshit in your life because you've trained yourself in a time to not being hurt over big things that you actually should be hurt about or not be affected by people's bad behavior that is actually pretty bad. But the training is it's like Marine training for dysfunction, where you're like, "Rah," that's probably the army, I don't know, but you're training yourself to like muscle up and handle the bullshit. And really your life doesn't get better by doing that. It just acquires more bullshit. It's just you're buried under the bullshit and you can't see the forest through the trees. So another pattern that we take on is the withholding pattern. By the way, these are all the patterns, one of the 8 patterns I'm describing now. You can find out your pattern if you go take the personality pattern test that I made for you over on my site at HeidiRain.com. But the withholding pattern is you hurt me, but in the moment I'm going to pretend like I'm fine. I'm going to pretend like I'm not bothered. I'm going to pretend like I don't see you drinking. I'm going to pretend I don't see you acting like an idiot. I'm pretending you didn't just say that thing at the restaurant and embarrass me to high heaven. I'm going to pretend. I'm going to do all that. And then later on, what I'm going to do is when you're fine or you're sober or you're trying to be intimate with me or something like that, I'm going to withhold from you. I'm not going to give it to you because you were a bad boy and I didn't speak my truth then, but now you're going to get the picture because I'm going to withhold my affection. I'm going to withhold my approval. I'm going to withhold my emotion. I'm going to withhold everything from you so that you get the drift. And I can't tell you how many times I did that in my life with my alcoholic father, where he would embarrass me and I would bury it, pretend I was okay, or he'd put me in danger and I'd bury it and I'd act like I was okay. And then he'd want to go play badminton or go-karting and make it up to me. And I thought make it up to me, but he didn't even remember what he did. He was clueless. He had no idea what he even did. But I'm over here thinking, really overthinking it and making it like, oh yeah, he's plotting to win my affection. The man just wanted to ride a go-kart. You know what I mean? But I would say, "Well, I'm gonna not go-karting now because you hurt me the other night and you don't remember that, but if I go-karting today, you're gonna remember and you're gonna know that's why." I mean, look at the amount of strategizing that we do, and do we really think the addict or alcoholic is gonna put those dots together? I mean, Lord in heaven and a baby manger, Jesus on Christmas. No, okay? They don't even know that they did that. They're not even, like, conscious that that actually happened and that was a real thing. So all this withholding and strategizing is kind of like just a one-woman game. It's like a game you're playing with yourself and everybody loses, including you. So when we don't express our rage and we don't speak our truth and we don't let our resentment be known, what ends up happening is these codependent patterns take root in our lives and they impact every single area. We end up doing it with everybody else. Surely at work, not surely you will, but surely, that annoying coworker that like bothers you all the time and puts her nose in your business or asks you to do more than you want to, and you pretend she doesn't bother you, and you're like, "Ah," and then you're out to lunch with her, and you're like, "Ha, ha, ha," pretending. I mean, what if you were just like, I don't really wanna be with Shirley. I Shirley makes me feel da 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 da, and you were honest with yourself. Well, this radical truth takes a whole new life of its own. Trust me, I see it in my program all the time where my clients, my friends, my students that come into this, and we're all friends at the end of the day, come into this and they're like, wow, I didn't know I could unleash the beast. And then eventually you learn how to rein it in and be graceful with your truth telling. It's like you have your lasso of truth and you know just how to ring it, and you're not, like, beating people over the head with the truth and hammering them, you have a more delicate hand, at your honesty game, which is ultimately, what we want. We wanna speak the truth, what? In love, right? We wanna speak the truth in love, but if we're lying to ourselves, how the hell are you gonna speak the truth? If you're covering the truth and hiding the truth from you, how do you heal if you're not acknowledging the depth and breadth of your pain? And you need to stop pretending that you're okay. That's step number one. How do you get on the other side of this? If you say, I want to recover from these codependent patterns, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm exhausted. Putting on the show is freaking tiring. How much I got a permagram. I'm a Stepford wife. I'm going through the motions of my life. I'm covering up messes. I'm acting like everything's okay. And at the end of the day, I am not happy. I am not fulfilled, right? That's what our lives become. And so the next step for you is to make a decision that you're gonna stop hiding the truth of how you feel from yourself. If I was a little girl and I went back to some of the scenes in my life where I was picked up and banged into the wall or my hair pulled from room to room or whatever it was, and I just got let's just pretend I just got slapped across the face. That was like a normal occurrence. So let's pretend I just got slapped, okay? I, as an 8-year-old kid, got slapped, and I know I cannot look like I'm upset about that thing. I have to pretend that I'm fine, that it didn't hurt me, that I'm okay, because if I show emotion, then I'm gonna hurt the feelings of the person who hit me, and they're gonna be mad at me and take their love away from me. And even though they're slapping me, I still want their love. That's the story we tell in our minds. And so what I do is I don't say a word and I act like I'm okay. But what happens later on is I go into my bedroom and I plot and I think all the things I wanna say and I try to get that, try to do but I don't do it to the person, act like, "Hey, everything's fine. Oh, yeah, of course. I wanna go get ice cream with you," or, whatever it is. But if I was in the present moment, I would go back to that incident, many of just one, and I would stand with this little girl, and I'd put my arms around her at 8 years old, and I would look at her and I would go, Wow. Right after she was slapped, and I would say, "That's not okay." "Wow, what? What just happened to you? That is not okay." I would be outraged for that kid. And we need to start being outraged for ourselves, for the treatment that we are receiving from people who are hurting us. If you are not outraged at the mistreatment, the constant when you show up and you invite them to dinner and they don't come, or they ruin the whole thing, or they, they fall into the Christmas tree and Christmas is over. They light the house on fire with the kerosene heater. They spend all the money, and you're not allowed to be outraged. And why? Well, I can't be outraged because they have a disease and they're an alcoholic. And if I show I'm mad, I don't have compassion, and then I'm not being a good person because I don't have a I don't care if they're an addict or an alcoholic and they have this psychological disorder. You still get to be outraged that it's happening, and you can have compassion at the same time, but don't have toxic compassion where you see their side of the story so much that you forget your own. You gotta see what's happening to you in this story. Amen? And that's where I come in, okay? The first step in your healing is acknowledging and being outraged at the way you're being treated in this situation, or at least bothered enough to take the next step, which is to start to protect yourself, start to heal yourself while you're so busy doing everything you can to pour into them and to heal them and to help them and to fix them. Protect yourself. At least stop the bleeding. It's hard to get dry under a waterfall. It's hard to be healthy and whole and peaceful and all kind and all the things and loving when you're getting dumped on. How do you do that? You need to come up for air, my love. You need to come up for air and get some support. And so that's the next step. First step is go through, watch this again, listen to this again. Go through and start to ask yourself, if I was allowed to stand with Heidi and that 8-year-old, but I stand with myself now, whether it's your 8-year-old or your 22-year-old or your 56-year-old, whatever you're going through, can you look from an outside perspective and stand with that person and be outraged for her for a minute? And then what do you do next about that? You set about the business of getting out from under the waterfall. You remove the pain, right? I got a stick in my head. I got injured. I have this piece of glass stuck in my mind. I could be like, well, oh, wow. I have a nail in my head, okay? That is to say, I got a nail in my head, and I'm like, "Well, the nail didn't mean to get in there, and how can I learn to live with the nail, and how can I" be the first thing is get the nail out, man. Remove the object that is inflicting the pain long enough for you to see what the next course of action is for you. I'm not advocating that you go sign a divorce paper or separation. I'm saying you get into a program that's just for you, that's not geared towards just the addict or alcoholic or the toxic person, or it's not going to rush you to forgiveness or rush you to like sweeping it under the rug and moving on, but help you process what the hell's happening here. All right. Now, if you can't tell I'm passionate, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, obviously, I did not expect to get this hyped up, but like my core and why I do what I do is I am kind of the defender. I am the liberator. I am outraged enough for you that I want to take a stand for you. And I'm going to take a stand for you long enough until you can stand by yourself for yourself. But for now, I want you to lean on me if that's what you need to do, because that's what I'm here for. I love you. I know this has been helpful for you if you let it, if you take it in, and if you meditate on it, marinate on it, pray about it. And the next step would be go take that codependency test and see how the dysfunction has made you function and what codependent pattern you've taken on. And take that test over at HeidiRain.com. I love you. I'll see you really soon. Take excellent care of yourself. And if you need me, you can also just send me an email. Old school, I know. What? Yeah, but you can literally go to my site and send me an email. I'm right here. All right. I love you. I'll see you next time. And you can do that over at HeidiRain.com. Bye bye.